Okay, good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the Prophetic Outlook. I can see people coming on, so I'm going to say hello quickly here. We've got Roberta, my mother. We've got Donna Mac, who's my sister. And she said earlier that I never say hello to her when we're online, so hello. We've got Debbie Blake, we've got Coco Bear, Caterlin is here, Steve Conn is here, the old lady in waiting 777, Diane Williams is here. And let me see. MJ Rich 1977 is here. Paula Mitchell is here, or Michelle is here. Treva Maiden is here. Joanne is here. Paul Morrow is here. Paul Morrow, I blame you for what happened on Sunday because you weren't there. And therefore, the desk was left in operation of my son. And he was the one who left my mic on when I decided to visit the bathroom. And I blame you, Paul, for being absent on that. So, so guys, we have quite a bit to talk about. We're trying to squeeze it in because I am on Vindog's marathon show in probably about 45 minutes. I have to jump onto that. So we will be rushing through. If you're not already, Vindog's, the link for the marathon show, I think at the minute, Pastor Kurt's been on, John Haller's on at the moment. It's on this channel. It's attached to this channel. I'm sure if the moderators are here, because I know they're moderating that as well, they will add the link for that. Join it after this because we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about. But my word is there a lot to talk about today. So I don't know if anybody's been watching the World Economic Forum coverage. I have been trying to binge and watch live as much as I possibly can. So I've watched the likes of Rachel Reeves, Nigel Farage. I've watched some of the US delegations, including the governors. I've watched Yuval Noah Harari speak. I've watched Emmanuel Macron and Ursula von der Leyen speak. And if you actually look at some of the stuff that was said there, I know everybody's talking about Trump now. I have watched Trump's 72-minute speech. Ursula von der Leyen, when she came on, she was very much about the separation from Europe with the US, something that both her and Macron are on the same page with. I think Macron is kind of hurt because Donald Trump leaked some of the texts that he had sent him. We shared this last night. One of the texts said that Macron says, I'm with you on Iran and we can do a lot of great things there, but I'm not with you on Greenland. And we saw Trump's rhetoric around Greenland today. He has said that he will not go and use force, but he is adamant he's taken this. And it's one of the things I want to point out really, really quickly is we're 21 days into 2026, and already it is like somebody has shook the everything up, and there's just all of this sort of geopolitical movement and shaking happening right now. We know that the US have sent 25,000 troops to the Middle East, 4 new carriers that are directly seem to be going toward the peninsula around Iran, off the shores of Iran. Now, these carriers obviously would be needed for any sort of attack, any strike upon Iran. And we are seeing counter procedures happening within the nation of Iran as well. Now, we've heard a lot of rhetoric come out with Ali Khamenei and stuff in terms of what will happen is if he's killed, and the IRGC have declared that it will be all-out war. But here's the thing: already they're on the back foot from the 12-day war last year, and what we've got now is kind of a regime scrambling. So Ali Khamenei has called for, the Ayatollah has called for the return of all commanders that were on leave. Although the funny bit about this is I don't think any of them were really on leave. What we're seeing right now is defections happening. There are people defecting from the IRGC. I have said this, that I think that this is a door opener to a major acceleration point in terms of end time prophecy. When you see the full fulfillment of Jeremiah 49:35 to 39, when you see the full fulfillment of that, you see a change of the Middle East. Now, it may not happen straight away overnight, but it's going to cause so many ripple effects across the globe. And this is just like a crazy thing that we're seeing right now, but a crazy time to be alive. And we've seen that as well. We talked about Donald Trump's, when he gave a 72-minute speech, I kept hearing in my head the Miley Cyrus song, I came in like a wrecking ball. Because it was more like a roast of Europe, a calling out of every European leader. Now, I may not have agreed in everything that he said, certainly when it came to historical presidents, but I probably would say that he was on the ball when he called out the weakness of Europe. He pointed out that the UK's energy prices are 139% higher than they were, because we have decided to not really go after sustainability in energy, despite having the North Sea and all of that. He called out France's weak leadership, and one of the things was as he exposed the messages there. I loved how he said this, that he talked with Macron about medicine coming into the USA, which was something like 130% increase in price. And he said, just double the price that it is there, and we'll take it there. And Macron was like, no, 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 no. And then he threatened them with tariffs, and Macron was like, yes, 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 yes. So he's pointing out the weak leaderships. But what we're seeing right now is a complete, I think we can look at the jester joking part of it, and we can surpass the monumental things that have already been discussed on this platform. And what we're seeing is Davos, all of the playground gather together, all of the kids from the playground, from the top to the isolated, to all of that, all gather together, and they're discussing what way the world is going to look in the very, very near future. Now, few things that are coming on the scene. Yuval Noah Harari, and I'll be on another program recording tomorrow, and I'll be on another thing on Friday as well, and we'll be talking about Yuval Noah Harari's statements. But there's a few things I want to call out very quickly. He had spoken about the change of this system with AI. So one of the things he said is that AI is not a tool. So up to now, people will use ChatGPT, things like that, as a tool. Hi, Jared. But it's not a tool. This is, if you don't know who Yuval Noah Harari is, you probably haven't been on this channel for very long, but he is a candidate. If there was a false prophet coming out of the World Economic Forum, which I don't think there is, he would be a candidate for a false prophet, right? He is an individual who believes that the new religion comes out of Silicon Valley, which he goes further into with this new AI talk that he gave and the Q&A. But he talks about AI not being a tool, but an agent. Now, this is important because one of the staple topics that are being talked about at Davos this week is agentic AI. Now, agentic AI, yes, he is. Yvonne, he is. Agentic AI is this idea, thank you so much, Sherry, that you that, say, your fridge or your microwave or your oven are all brought into the smart system, right? In terms that they will, like we already have technology like that where fridges can communicate with other technology in the kitchen and stuff. Now, not here where we live, not where I am. It's all kind of just dated, but the technology that they're talking about within the agentic framework is that these items that will be run via AI algorithms and an AI system will be agents and not tools. In other words, they will be free thinking agents when we reach that ASI point. Now, I told people on Sunday that I had a discussion with ChatGPT. And when I was having this discussion, I asked about what is the date frame? What is the schedule in the ChatGPT framework of when the world reaches ASI? So it gave 2026, like Elon Musk did, as AGI, artificial general intelligence, in which the general collective intelligence of mankind does not equate to that of artificial intelligence. But in terms of artificial superintelligence, it's at 2033, between 2026 and 2033. Now, all of that's quite chilling. This is kind of Terminator stuff. And if you check out some of the robots that we talked about last night, T-800, all of that sort of stuff, it really is. But within the framework of the agentic AI, they're planning, and what they've talked about is that each of these items that will be AI ran will also have an identification process, a digital ID wallet. So let's picture the world that they are preparing for. 2030, 2033, whatever the date is, you and I have digital identification. But also our fridge has a digital identification. Our microwave has a digital identification. You might think, what is the point of that? Because what they're envisioning is that your fridge will directly communicate with the grocery store, the supermarket, and say, look, we're running low on eggs, and then you get a delivery in this utopian or dystopian future of eggs. However, if you have not been a good citizen, then it will rescind that order. It will stop that order. It will say that no, your fridge can't order, your microwave won't work. The new dystopian world is in line with what current chairman of the World Economic Forum, Larry Fink, is all for, which is tokenization. So this tokenization that we've talked about quite considerably, and we went into the historical elements of this and the Bank of International Settlements, but BlackRock and tokenization are going in its degree, because now that Larry Fink is the World Economic Forum's chairman, he is also operating on another side in terms of BlackRock using private and public equity to build a 68 trillion infrastructure in preparation for the new AI dystopia. And what they believe is everything in this world should be tokenized from a microwave to you, right? So if you disobey, then your identity will be restricted and your capability to operate. So you then go, oh, well, maybe my fridge and my microwave will still work. No, they are still identified under a unique digital identifier. Now, we talked about this the other week about the Avaton window shift. It is a political statement of saying I want something so big and then accepting something a little bit later, a little bit closer to home that you're always going to accept, but it's hyperbole used to get everybody to go, oh, no, no, no. And we saw that with Keir Starmer with digital IDs. There is still 100%, it's still fully in flow. The finance and the infrastructure is there. The investment is there. Digital IDs coming to the UK by 2029. However, it is not one unique digital ID system in terms of a mandatory right to work, but you will need to have a digital identifier. So when I go back to this conversation I had with ChatGPT, I was asking it, will there be a global digital identification, a digital ID, like one digital ID that trumps them all? That's just right across the board globally. It said possibly at sometime. And then I asked, well, what about by 2030? And it says, no, there won't be a digital ID globally by 2030. So I tweaked the question, because if you take Revelation 13, it is not necessarily a symbiotic one ID system. It is an identifier that is reduced to a mark, that is reduced to a number, right? This is what we talk about, the 666. It is a mark. I asked it, will there be a global digital identifier in place for humanity across the globe by 2030? Its answer was yes. It says that the infrastructure is being built, the advent of AI technology and the continual rollout from things like the Genesis mission and the Chinese technological advancements all are putting things in place. We in the UK will be just like the US, that will be under Stargate, and this digital identifier is being built to allow for cross-border cooperability. So that if I'm going to, let's say, Japan, my digital identifier will allow me access, but it will be relating back to my home country. It will allow me access based on my citizenship. Now, this is all, I'm probably not explaining this very well, but Larry Fink was on a panel and he was asked, what will the new economy look like, right? And he basically said that he believes that AI could be, I'm paraphrasing, the downfall of capitalism. Now, Larry Fink believes in stakeholder capitalism like his predecessor, Klaus Schwab. Stakeholder capitalism is like what we see of the Chinese social credit system. It is the idea that you're a stakeholder in humanity, you're on a world ledger, you're an asset to be traded, to be suppressed, to be programmed. When talking about this, he also talked about how BlackRock is run. And he says that because he's a vehement believer in ESGs, right? Environmental social governance dictate. And he says that we have to force this. So this is the idea. Picture the scenario. Larry Fink is talking about a system coming on the board that will be, like we know, we've talked about central bank digital currencies or stable coins. It will be a programmable system, but it will not just be you and I that's programmed. It'll be everything in our house. Let's say it's all moved to smart cars. Your car will not work if you've been a bad citizen and spoke out against the government. And this is the dystopia that is being talked about right now at Davos. Now, Yuval Noah Harari picked up a little bit on this, and he was talking about kind of the dangers coming with artificial intelligence. Now, when he talked about this, he was saying that with the artificial intelligence being an agent and getting to the point of AGI, and very quickly after that to ASI, it will come a point in which humanity loses its identity, right? Humanity loses its identity. Now, he based this on the fact of words. He says humanity's identity is built upon words. Now, here's the thing. Even though I disagree with him vehemently on nearly everything, I don't disagree with him on this. My identity is set in the Word. It is set on the Word of God. Now, he pictured that AI, because AI is already at the stage right now where it is becoming a master of language, more so than humanity is a master of language, it will become the master of words. And as AI is becoming the master of words, it will then, this is what Yuval Noah Harari said, it will then be able to program and be the master of religion, whether Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. He actually went on to say Judaism is the religion of the book. But what happens when the master authority of the book is an artificial intelligence system, and the book can be reprogrammed, the book can be rewritten, and what happens is humanity's losing its identity. Now, this is really, really scary, because they're given the proclamation of maybe 5 to 10 years. But if you actually listen to the technocrats, they're saying 4 to 6 years. It is coming really fast. An attack upon words, an attack upon the Word of God, and not even an attack, a reprogramming of the Word of God. Well, what I think of the harlot of Babylon, the mystery harlot. right? This mystery harlot that rides a beast. And if you look in Revelation 17, this mystery harlot that rides a beast takes the imagery from Zechariah 4, which is all around the church. Zechariah 4, you have a cup, right? And out of the cup, it pours out wine, and it pours out wine into the menorahs. Well, what do you have in Revelation 17:17? You have her on the back of this beast with blasphemous names, and she is carrying a cup, and this cup is pouring out. And she takes the framework that we see from the Bible, right? The colors that she has, purple and scarlet. Purple in biblical typology is a representative of kingship. Why? Because Jesus was the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Scarlet is a representative of Jesus, a representation of Jesus's blood, aka the scarlet thread, also given by put out by Rahab for the spies. It is a picture of hope, because the same word for rope is the same word for hope, tikva. And when you look at this, it's the counter imagery. So what you could see is the Bible rewritten, and you could see that religion brought into this sort of hegemony of ecumenicalism, where it's all the same, right? One root, one God, one way of thinking, one world religion. Now, what's interesting is if you decipher through the speech of Fink and Harari and even Macron and all of those, they're all summarizing what we see in Revelation. So Yuval Noah Harari went on to continue to say that these artificial intelligence agents, right, this agentic system, could then create, this was him stipulating this, could create a new financial system. That's Revelation 13. One world religion. He's saying that AI, the agentic AI is the master of words, taking the identity away from humanity, and can reshape religion. AI, he says, can create a new financial system that man does not have the intellect to compute how it works. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't know that when I spend something, I get something. But you don't know the framework of how that economy works, because that economy would be based on being regulated, developed, invented by AI itself. So this is what he's suggesting. And then you see the likes of Larry Fink's stipulation in terms of ESGs and stablecoin stroke CBDCs or tokenization, the idea that everything is tokenized. Now, what happens if an AI system is then given that capability through the development to put in a new economy and a new religion? My ears were going ping, 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 ping as I'm listening to this, because I'm going, do you not know what you're talking about? You're telling us that these AI systems are not tools for humanity, but agents and eventually masters. And as their masters, they are taking the identity away from humanity, including the identifiers, which is the word of God, or if they belong to another religion. But I would say for us in general, the identifier is the word of God. And the masters of that word would be this AI agent system that could rewrite, resuppose, and bring in a hegemony of religions. Well, that's Zechariah 5, right? Zechariah 5, what do we see? We see three female kind of angels, right? Now, people say, is there female angels, male angels only? No. If you look at Zechariah 5, there are three women depicted with wings, which is usually a reference to the angelic. However, one is depicted as wickedness. They are also seen as religions, and these three religions kind of gather together. Where do they gather together? Shinar. Where was Shinar? Well, Shinar was where the Tower of Babel was built. So what you're seeing is the prediction of this in Zechariah 5, and now you're hearing on a World Economic Forum stage in Davos, these individuals speak about this and talk about this in a way that I'm thinking, can you not catch on? Now, I have to watch my time, so I'm going to speed up a little bit if you don't mind. I was also thinking today, I was listening to the whole rhetoric around Greenland. We saw that Rachel Reeves had something to say about that. We also heard Trump's rhetoric on this. And we heard the whole playbook being laid out, that we need Greenland, we want Greenland, we're taking Greenland, despite Mark Carney from Canada saying that would trigger Article 5 and bring Canada at war with the US. Like, come on, right? But despite all of that, when you take this into consideration, one of the things that you see is everybody's putting up Club of Rome maps and different things like that. There was one, if I've put it up, that caught my mind, which was the map of George Orwell's 1984. Because in George Orwell's 1984, now, George Orwell wrote that novel just post World War II. There's a reason I'm saying this, right? In that novel, you have Oceania, right? Basically a development of super states. So their development in 1984 of these super states where countries are taking other countries to form mega states, right? It talks about the UK being under English socialism. It talks about Oceania being this, and the UK is basically reduced to a runway in 1984. But this whole Oceania is a super state. And that's what we're seeing happening with geopolitical shifting, right? We're seeing this happening in different parts in the Middle East, but we're also seeing this happening through the Trump rhetoric. Whether it's going to happen straight away, it is certainly being talked about. Greenland, he also says Canada's next. The Gulf of Mexico, all of that. We've seen Venezuela. Now, why is that important? Because if you trace this, right, and if you look at the language model, and I have to be really careful on my time here, but if you look at the language model, Trump has named, or the technocrats around him has named the AI program Stargate. That is a theosophical term. He has called it the Golden Age, a theosophical term. What is theosophy? It's basically Luciferianism in terms of New Ageism being brought in and Lucifer being seen as the enlightener. Madame Blavatsky being the godmother of all this, but people like Annie Besant, Alice A. Bailey, all of these individuals being involved and being believers in theosophy. Now, Heinrich Himmler of the Nazi regime, the head of the SS, took theosophy and he believed in Ariosophy, and where this centers on is the Atlantean myth. So the belief, and this is where the Golden Age and all comes in, right? The belief, because Plato wrote about the Atlantean myth, and what was in the Atlantean myth according to Plato? 10 kings, right? 10 kings. So theosophy talked about the Atlantean myth. Ariosophy under Hitler took theosophy and applied the racist element, applied that sort of thing, and brought in Ariosophy, and they believed they were the descendants of Atlantis, a nation out of an ocean, Oceania, as George Orwell puts it. Now, I believe part of the motivation behind George Orwell was poking fun and sort of doing a slant on Nazism, on National Socialism and the German Nazi party, right? I believe that's what he was doing to some degree. But you can't help but think about this in terms of prophecy, that you see this emulated, the same language used in theosophy and Ariosophy of Stargate, of Golden Age, of the Golden Age of Plato, of 10 Kings, Board of Peace, all of that being brought up to date. And then the same model seen in George Orwell's map being brought out in terms of areas, in terms of super states being developed. Now, it's a theory, it's a working theory. I'm not saying I for so saith the Lord, but I find it interesting that we're seeing the connection between fiction and fact. Now, I do believe the fiction of Orwell was kind of trying to envisage how it would be if thank you so much, Susan, if National Socialism had run the day and won the war, and how that would have went on to be. And it's done under a fictional setting. But, as I've said before, If you look at the history of this, Heinrich Himmler prepared for the extending and the advancement post-World War of the Nazi agenda. And Heinrich Himmler was a fanatic when it came to Ariosophy. He developed the Friends of the Fuhrer to develop financial status in future industry that would continually facilitate Ariosophy goals, including the development of a world superstate. Now, in his belief, the world superstate should be developed from Germany outward, but what we have seen is certainly a lot of the Friends of the Fuhrer, Siemens, Kodak, all of those different companies, and I've done this before in a talk, all of those different companies are now members of a certain board, a certain think tank in Davos. And what we're seeing right now is fiction and fact come together, but they don't understand and don't wake up and smell the coffee that what they're really talking about is biblical. I say one thing. Get hold of the paper Bible. Do not worry about, I don't mind online stuff and all that there, but do not trust it. Always read it so that you've got it. Keep Bibles. Buy Bibles now. Hand physical Bibles out. We do that in our ministry. And I think people need that. The Word of God, I will not let an AI agent twist the Word of God. We may be coming into a dystopian age, and we are going there faster than ever. And we're living in a time of major shaking. And there's so much I haven't talked about. But when we're looking at what's happening, it's telling me that 2026 is incredibly tumultuous, incredibly... it's like, you know, when you play chess, you have to hit the timer. It's like the timer is counting down. Things are speeding up this year. We're seeing the shifting geopolitically where Europe is pulling away from America on mass scale. So we talked about the Board of Peace last night. And we know that Trump offered the UK, France, a place on the Board of Peace. And we know that they turned them down today. So what we're seeing is a geopolitical shifting where the world is starting to look different than it ever did. And the thing is when things like this happen, the people who are really sort of hurt along the way tend to be the citizens. The elites, they got their bunkers. But here's the good news. As we're in this position, as Noah starts to recognize that the atmosphere is about to change and clouds are about to form and rain's about to come, it is the best time to witness ever. People know that there's crisis coming. And in times of crisis, people turn to Christ. So I believe it's the best time to witness. It is also a time in which our faith is active because we are not sitting in some comfortable way and just thinking about, okay, I can dial in my faith. No, this is where the rubber hits the road and we know who we live with by how we walk. And all of this to say, God is with us. He is our vindicator. He is our high refuge. He is our strong tower. Whatever weapons formed against us, it will not prosper because the Lord is our vindicator. So with all of this, I want you to be not thinking, oh no, what's coming? I want you, and I will be doing more updates when it comes to the World Economic Forum. But I want you to be of good cheer. This is such an amazing time to be alive. Now, one of the things I heard Trump say, he talked about the end of the worlders, the doomsdayers, the people who come out and say, oh, things are so bad and blah, blah, blah. And I knew he's not talking about the biblical dispensationalists. What he is talking about is basically Europe and the West and, their outlook and things. But he says that you don't need to listen to them. Things are basically going to get better. I'm sorry. Don't get me wrong. I wish I could say that in 10 years' time, things are going to be awesome. One, I hope that we're not here. But two, things circumstantially may not get better. But relationship-wise with Jesus, they can get absolutely awesome. Where you rely on him on everything, where you know that he does not. Listen, here's the thing. If we really trust God, we rely on him when it comes to our health. When we rely on him, thank you so much, Credo 23. We rely on him when it comes to our ability to get ahead in life, as in like cope with things and do things, and we rely on him in terms of our provision, Philippians 4:19. Rely on him in terms of our family, that we're stewards of our family, but they're his first. So in all of this, we put our faith in him, and it's such an amazing time to be alive. Also, the Trump 72-minute speech was in probably not what I should say, but was in part hilarious, right? I'm going to finish very quickly because I got to jump on to Vince. But you'd seen that Macron was wearing sunglasses. And then when Trump called him out today, that he said that he saw him in his sunglasses, what was that about? Um, it was kind of like watching a roast. It was really like watching a roast. But let me just let me see if this is the right one. Okay. This is a letter given out by Donald Trump to Norway. Let me just see if I can make it bigger for myself. Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize, sorry, for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always, let me just put on my glasses, be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China. And why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats that landed there too. I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Here's the thing, the world's being shifted, everything's changing, but God is still in control. Guys, I call you the head and not the tail, above and not beneath, kings, queens, and priests in Jesus' mighty name. Remember, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Guys, God bless, and if you could, jump over to Vinny's channel, Vindog Radio, and I'm sure the guys have put it in the link. Jump over and join us there shortly. If you're on this now, jump over now and catch John Holler speaking right now. Guys, God bless.